it's Ashley from Sweet Dreams Bake Shop, and welcome to Fail Friday, the series where I tell you how to fix your baking fails, how to fix my baking fails, or how to avoid a fail. And today I'm going to be talking to you about the 3 fails that you should avoid as a home baking business owner or a commercial bakery owner, and how you're probably still going to do these things no matter how much I warn you. So let's get into it. So the first fail that you're probably going to do, more likely than not, is either overcharge or undercharge. And this happens to the best of us. But here are some ways to kind of avoid that. So before you agree to an order, it's really important that you think in your head, do I own those things? So for example, if somebody asks you to make a 12-inch 3-tiered cake, you've got to think, do I have a 12-inch cake pan? Do I have a 10-inch cake pan? Do I have an 8-inch cake pan if you're going by 2-inch increments? And if you don't, then you've got to factor that into the price. Now, it's not completely fair to have somebody pay for the whole cake pan price just because you don't have one. But it is fair for them to pay a portion of that because you're gonna have to go and pick it up and also pay for it. Eventually, the product will pay for itself after a while, but you do have to factor in some of that cost in there. Now, if it's something even easier, like a material like gold leaf that you don't have, you do need to charge quite a bit for something like that. So the best way to avoid overcharging is saying that you're going to get back to the person about how much this is going to cost. Now, this is where it gets a little bit tricky. In a commercial bakery setting, that customer is right there in front of you at that time. So you can still tell them though that it's going to take a few minutes. Give yourself at least 5 minutes to quickly research all of the things that you will be needing for that cake or cookie order if it's a little bit more complicated. You're allowed to do that. Now, if they say something like, oh, I'm in a rush, or I need this to be done quickly, well, I mean, that's not really plausible. If you're coming in to get a custom cake and you've only allotted yourself 3 minutes of time, that's not possible for anybody to come up with a cake order in that time. So you can tell them when to come back so that they can do it in a more relaxed setting. Do not undercharge because of that. That happens more often than I would like to admit, but it happens to us all the time. So it's super, super important that you really make sure to give yourself the time to charge properly. Now, overcharging can happen as well, but there's a better way to get out of overcharging. If you look at the cake product and you say to yourself, oh, I charged $300 for this, but it only looks like a $200 cake, then you better get piping, my friends. Just keep adding to that cake. It's better to add to the cake than to say to your customer, oh, I overcharged you, it's only going to be this much. I know that sounds weird because customers love to hear that it's going to cost less than what they thought. But honestly, if that were me, I would kind of think that was a little bit unprofessional. So generally, I like to keep it fairly close. What I mean by that is, sure, it's fine if you're deducting like $10, but if you're really deducting to the point of $100 difference, that would kind of make me lose a little bit of faith. So I think it's really important not to deduct too much and instead add more detail to the cake. Now, let's say you're in a, for instance, where you can't add any more because they specifically asked for something else. Just keep it as is. Maybe deduct a few dollars even if you're way more off. But honestly, it's better to just keep it as that. And who is to say that you actually undercharged? You know, sometimes we just undervalue our work in general. But like I said, with all of these warnings, you're probably still going to do this. When the pressure's on, it's really hard. And when you're first starting out, it's hard too. Even after years of experience, you still make a misstep every now and then because every cake experience is different. When there's a new trend out as well, you don't know how hard that's gonna be, even if you're a very talented and very well-versed decorator. You just don't know sometimes. probably going to do is promise something you've never done before. And this kind of segues really well into what I was saying about how even when you're a well-versed cake decorator, there's always new things coming up. So you can't have possibly done every single design in the cake world because new things are coming up all the time. For example, sugar sheet technique came out a couple months ago, but that was something I had never really done before until I finally tried it. And I will say that there is a lot of trial and error when it comes to these things, especially if you're maybe on the up and up of the trend and there's not a whole lot of tutorial videos showing you how to do it properly. So there's going to be lots of room for error. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, this whole promising things that you've never done before. On the one hand, it's good for you to do things that you've never done before because how are you ever going to do them if you've never done them before? So what I used to do when I was doing things that I had literally never done before is I would charge a little bit less and I would be honest with my customers. That was in the very, very beginning when I was charging like pennies for my product. But as I continued on and I did get better with my craft and I did get better at seeing how different things could possibly be done, and my conjecture was a lot better because I could kind of see, oh, that technique is a little bit more similar to this technique that I've done before, so I think it's going to turn out like this. But not everything is gonna turn out so cookie cutter perfect like that. So it's up to you whether you want to promise somebody something that you've never done before. Now, here's how to avoid getting into that mess, but it's not a guarantee that you're not going to end up in that situation still. I always try to stay on top of trends, and I used to always try them out before anybody ever ordered them. And in a video way back when I first started making these baking business videos, I talked about how it was really important to hone in on your craft and to make sure that you're still practicing new techniques and make sure that you have time to practice these new techniques. Because sometimes you really can get in a rut of doing the same thing over and over, and then when something new comes along and it's something that could be very lucrative for your business, you're not quite ready to try it out because you've been so stuck doing the same things. So it really is important to make sure that you're trying to stay on top of those trends, although that can be hard to decipher what people are going to order next. So it is up to you whether or not you are going to accept a very, very new thing that you've never done before, but just make sure that you give yourself ample time. This is another way to kind of safeguard against having a fail from doing this. Because as we all know, if you agree to do something that you've never done before, you're probably going to have a couple fails along the way. We all know as cake decorators and cookie decorators that half the battle is just figuring out how to do it. Once you've figured out how to do it, then making 50 of whatever is a lot easier. It's just that first one that's very challenging because you gotta figure out a way to do it efficiently, effectively, and so that it looks like how the picture is supposed to look. So I suggest if you are going to promise to do something that you've never done before, and of course, to the customer, you want to act very confident in your skills, then you shouldn't book so many orders surrounding that order. You want to make sure that you leave a lot of time to get it right. Sure, in that particular week, you may not make as much because you're not taking on as many orders because you're focusing on this particular thing. But down the road, I'm sure you'll get better and better at that particular technique and you'll be able to do it very easily. And in fact, you will make more money. And the final thing that you are definitely going to do, which segues into what I just said, is you're going to overbook yourself. And this tends to happen for a few reasons. One, sometimes people just have trouble saying no in general in life. Two, we get a little bit greedy, we see the dollar signs, but we don't really think it through how long everything that we've agreed to is really going to take, or we minimize it in our heads so that it makes sense to us. And three, maybe you've agreed to do things that you've never done before that look deceptively easy. So this is definitely going to happen to you. You're going to overbook, even though right now I'm telling you, don't overbook. It's very, very hard for you not to. And the reason is because if you haven't been doing this for a very long time, and maybe you've done a few amazing cakes or a few amazing cookies, but you had all the time in the world at that point to do them. And now you're starting to do this on a business level. Maybe you're starting to do it in a way that you're not going to even go to your day job anymore, and this is going to be your full thing. Making that transition as well is a really great way to overbook yourself. And I have firsthand experience with this. Now, of course, like I've mentioned in other videos, I've always had my day job, but I get summers off. So having summers off, I'm like, wow, I can do so much more. And sure, I made good money during the summers, but oh my goodness, I was so booked. 1 week, I had over 2,000 cookies to do. And it wasn't just like a pipe and fill cookie and you're done. It was initial cookies, logo cookies, character cookies. I had so many cookies, like 3 cakes in that weekend, plus I was working at a commercial bakery. So I really stretched myself thin and I overbooked myself completely. But I'll tell you something, I never did that again. And it just takes time to learn your limits and how much can really be done. Now, this is kind of a life lesson, not just a baking lesson, but just because you have the actual hours available doesn't mean that you're going to have the creative energy to be able to pull it off to the best of your ability. You want to give your clients good work. And you also want to make sure that you are still giving yourself time to have weekends. There was a period of time in my life where I worked 7 days a week for like a few months. It was really challenging to get a job in my field at that time. And so I decided, okay, well then I need to pick up, 2 other jobs to make up for that. And one of them was my at-home baking business. And I was just so exhausted during that time. Although you're making very good money and it is very lucrative, there has to be a balance between your work and relaxation. And it takes a long time, especially for at-home bakers, to figure out that balance. So I know I've warned you of all the things not to do, but you're most likely going to still have some of those fails. And it's actually just part of the learning curve of owning an at-home baking business. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you can be part of the Sweetie fam. Right now, I'm uploading daily, so make sure you hit that notification bell so you know when I upload. Also, be sure to comment, request, or ask a question. I love hearing from you guys. And be sure to send in your fails, and they can be fixed by next Friday.